I think all the characters in the Oddworld universe, you kind of have to, as a creator, you kind of have to try and project into them and be them, or find the part of yourself that could be them, whether it's good or bad. We all have that capability. One thing I remember, in film classes and writing classes and learning about storytelling was great bad guys are never acted by people who see the bad guy as a bad guy. So there's various famous actors at different times. You always play bad guys, and they go, "I don't play bad guys. My characters are just misunderstood." And that's kind of a powerful way, and that makes a much better bad guy. And I think the power of that is sort of to the human factor of how confusing our complex issues may be, and our complex behaviors may be, and that even though people are doing terrible things, it doesn't mean that they have moments that you don't feel for them, right? I'm not saying that they deserve to be felt for. I'm just saying, in great storytelling, you're able to make your bad guys empathetic as well, and you can make your good guys have some darkness to them as well, and that can create. We see this more as time goes on in filmmaking, particularly. Uh, if we go back to the silent era films, everything was truly black and white, usually in the nature of what's going on, who's the good guy versus the bad guy. And as we start getting into the latter half of the 20th century and the 21st century, that gets more and more blurred. It's just not the good guy cop, now it's the psycho cop. But that was a change in sort of the narrative of the genres. And so for Stranger, in how I would identify with the characters, I think I identify with all the characters in ways that at different moments and different times in your life, you try to find that thing. It's like, how does that guy feel? What was my moment of feeling that way? How might that make the characters a little more compelling, or a little more empathetic, or a little more intimidating, whatever it is. And personally, in my own life, I certainly had opportunities where I could have gone the wrong ways, and sometimes it's through basically pain, suffering, exposure, hard lessons, humility, or humiliating moments that cause you to look at yourself differently, and then choose a different path than what may have been leading you into an area that wouldn't have been good for you or other people. And so those notions, I just think we all, a lot of us struggle with every day, or throughout the arc of our lives. And by making better choices, we become better people. And I think most people on the planet want to be better people. And then we get into ideologies and what they think makes that up. But I think that's a good starting point, right? Like, most people want to be better people. And so I see myself in Stranger, of course, but I see myself in Abe, I see myself in Munch, I see myself in the Gluckins, I see myself in the Grubs, I see myself in the Outlaws. It's all different things. And I think in good storytelling, you really have to try to project into those characters and not just produce a cliche. I mean, it's difficult in our sort of comedic landscape of Oddworld, where we have limited time to do narrative storytelling. It's really about the play more than it is the story, because of the medium. It has to be challenging and fun to interact with. And then as you layer in this storytelling, it's like, how do we make characters more compelling? And if they feel superficial, like if they're just embodying the bad guy, that is kind of the classic Dr. Evil type, I want to conquer the world. We get it, right? We've seen it a million times. It's not very sophisticated. It's not very believable. I'm thinking of in Will Smith's remake of Wild Wild West, Kenneth Branagan's character. It's just like so ridiculously superficial. It's like you would never have a bad guy that elevated to that degree of power or influence, being that dorky and one-sided and, uncompelling. And then somehow these evil guys are able to find lots of other evil people to fill in as their minions. Life doesn't work that way so much. For the most part, it's like people don't want to follow someone who's evil. Right. So you have to, if you are evil, you have to convince people that you're not, that you have some other cause that you're fighting for that's righteous. No one goes into wars going, we're evil and we're going to steal their shit and we want the whole populace behind us. That was over in Rome. So now you got to lie to the populace to do evil things. But the point of that is that you try to to create characters that are more compelling and interesting, they can't just embody the cliche. They should have some more depth of their history, their cause, their plight. And in that, I think a creator, a writer finds that by trying to find that part in themselves. And whether it's just in your imagination, question is, do you have the governor on your choices to make better choices, even when you're depleted, feeling weak, drained, stressed, where you could have made worse choices, and you might have even had those thoughts flow through your mind, which actually I think we all do at different times. But what makes us better is we don't act on the worst impulses that we have. That comes to a higher consciousness, right? Like we think it through, we realize that's just those thoughts are coming to me for quite possibly true circumstances, but for the wrong reasons. And as writers, we have to explore that in ourselves to try and create characters that are a little more compelling. And I think that becomes more challenging the more sort of superficial the delivery system is. And in games, you often most of your money has to go into the challenge of the game, and then the story sort of reinforces that challenge to make the interactive experience more compelling, deeper, make you want to complete it. But ultimately, it's difficult to sort of have the budget like you would in a movie or a show where you're just focused on the character development, you're just focused on the story arcs. So for me, I think, as creators, we have to go into ourselves, explore some of that to try and make the characters more compelling. And in that, I think, there's that reflection of myself in all of those characters. But that doesn't mean who you are. It just means you're trying to find that human way, that the reasons why they became that way and why they believe in the way that they are, even if that's very broken. But if it's done competently, I think then it makes the characters more interesting, and you get to look at them with a slightly different objective opinion rather than just like, that guy's really bad.